Welcome to the writing corner. Here you see it as it is when you first acquire the template. I'm gonna try my best to explain it as simply as possible. And this template is quite easy to use. It's basically the same as my first template, but just much more intuitive. Okay, so here on the top left corner you have a box that says Start Here. And in this box you have 3 pages: quarterly goals, monthly goals, and tasks. We're going to open quarterly goals, and here you see Q1, Q2, Q3, and Q4. Right now we're about to enter July, so we're about to enter Q3, and that's the one I'm going to start with. So let's imagine that in Q3 we want to write the first draft of our novel. So let's click New Page. We are going to call it WYP1 Complete Draft 1. And here we have 2 properties. One of them is the quarter, and then we have a hidden property, which is monthly goals. We're not going to touch this right now because it's not important yet. So for each project I like to have an icon and also a cover. Change cover, link, and I already have an image pre-selected. Copy image address. Okay, so here it is, WYP1 Complete Draft 1. And then let's imagine that in this quarter we also want to write a short story. Of course, you don't have to have more than 1 goal per quarter. Even completing draft 1 is already a really big goal for a 3-month period. But because this template also accommodates short stories, I want to include that in the goals. So let's say that we want to short story 1 complete outline. Let's not comment on how we have 3 months just for a short stories outline and 3 months to complete a whole novel draft. So here again, let's choose the icon and the cover. Perfect. Okay, so now let's go back to the writing corner and we're gonna go to the monthly goals. Okay, here we're going to add a new page and we're going to first be reminded of the quarterly goals that we have. So for this monthly goal, we're going to work on WYP1 Draft 1. And okay, let's imagine this goal I want to complete in the month of July. So here set date and date July. And let's say that in July we want to WYP1 Draft 1 Act 1 plus 2A. And here I'm imagining that we're dividing the story in 3 acts, but basically 4 acts: Act 1, Act 2A, Act 2B, and Act 3. So again, let's add an icon, but here we don't need to add the cover because it won't show up anywhere. So let's do that. And you know, I could choose a goal for August and September as well, and if this was a story that I was really working on, I would do that right now. But because I'm just giving you an example, I'm only going to be adding things for the month of July, so the first month of the quarter. So then let's go back. And now we're going to decide what to do on the first month of the quarter for the short story. So add new page. Here we can write short story 1. And since our goal for the whole quarter is to outline the short story, I guess in July we can brainstorm the main bits. So something very simple. And the date is from July 1st until July 31st, and the quarterly goal is short story 1 complete outline. Okay, and you can see that here we have the property progress, which doesn't have anything yet, but we'll get back to it in a moment. So now we're gonna go back to the writing corner, and we're going to move on to the last step of this setup, which is the tasks. So the tasks are basically the small steps that we need to take in order to achieve the monthly goals and therefore the quarterly goals. So here in the tasks we're going to create a new page. Okay, and let's be reminded of our monthly goals. So for WYP1, our July goal is to draft 1 Act 1 plus 2A. Now, thinking of the steps that we need to take, we can divide them, for example, by week or by day. Personally, I like to know upfront what I need to do on each day of the month. So that's how I'm going to divide my steps and therefore create my tasks. So if in July I want to draft Act 1 plus 2A, that's basically half of the novel. That means that in the second month I'm going to draft the second draft, and in the third month maybe I'm going to revise that draft. But since I want to draft Act 1 and 2A in the first month, we have 30 days in the month, and a novel could be around 60 scenes. So I think I'm going to try and write 1 scene per day. So I'm going to write here WYP1, draft 1, scene 1, and I'm going to do that on the first, or I guess since Monday is on June 30th, I'm gonna start in June. Okay, and let's add the icon as always. Perfect. Now what I'm going to do here, let me just open this up so we can see better. Okay, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to duplicate this, and then on the second day I'm going to write scene 2. On the third day I'm going to write scene 3, and I'll do this for each day of the month. I know it's a lot of work, and that's why I also recommend that you divide the tasks week by week if you prefer. But for me, day by day is really the way to go, because then once you have this set up, you don't have to think about what you have to do on which day. On that day, you wake up, you look at this template, and it will tell you what you have to do on that day. So you don't need to think about it anymore. You can just do it. And yeah, that's why I like to go through this trouble first and then, you know, have it easy for the rest of the month. Okay, so I would do this for all 30 scenes, but I'm not going to, you know, write all of them right now because that would be a lot of work and take a lot of time. Am I going to do it? No, I don't think I'm gonna do it. Okay, what I am going to do is I'm going to add here one task that we pretend we need to do today so that I can show you what I just explained to you. So let's pretend that today we need to draft 1 outline Act 1 plus 2A. And this is the week of June 18th, so let's imagine that we have to do that throughout this week. And of course, in that case, that shouldn't be in the monthly goal of July, but I'm just gonna leave it like this so that I can show you what happens when you have something to do on a specific day. And then let's also create the goals for the short story. So we need to brainstorm the main beats in July. So let's say here, short story 1, brainstorm the catalyst. And you can also see that this database is divided by week. So here we have the week of 15 to 21 of June and the week of 29 to 5 Okay, so let's imagine that I filled this out with all of the tasks that I need to do for the month of July. And let's go back to the writing corner, and you will see that some things have been updated. So here, for example, we have the section to write today, and the things that I wrote that had to be done this week and today are here: short story 1, brainstorm catalyst, and WIP 1, draft 1, outline act 1 plus 2A. And what's going to happen is here we have the status. So when we start our writing session, we can say it's in progress. And then when we accomplish this task, we can click done. And you will see for the short story, I only had one task, so it shows here in the progress that it's 100% complete. But of course, if I had 30 tasks, for example, then it would only be partially complete. And that's what's going to happen when I say that the WIP 1, draft 1, outline, act 1 plus 2A is done. You will see that here the progress of WIP 1, the monthly progress, I mean, is only 25% because I only have like 4 tasks. I forgot to explain to you that what I like to do in order to be more specific. I know I have here the date July, so I know these goals are for July, but I actually also like to write it here. So here I put Jul as in July. Okay, and then it'll be easier for me to remember. Okay, this is the month of July. So here in the currently writing, we're going to open the page WIP1, and these pages in the currently writing are not connected to the quarterly goals. So if you see, like, this is a database and the to write today is another database, and the to write today is the database that's connected to the tasks, but the currently writing is a database that's connected to all of the projects that you have in mind. So here you see the future projects. It's part of this database. So yeah, let's click on WIP1. And first you see the status is in progress. And this is what's going to put this project in the currently writing. For example, if I had not started or shelved or done, then it wouldn't be there anymore. It would be in the future projects or in another section of the same database. But here it is in progress. I'm currently writing it. And let's imagine it's an adult novel. You can also add the genre here, but I just like to divide my novels like this: adult, middle grade, and short story. At the moment, I don't have young adult story ideas that I want to work on, but of course you can add whatever you want. Okay, and let's scroll down. So we're going to start here on the second column where it says about the novel, and this section only has basic information, so the title of your novel, the genre, the audience, and the theme. Then underneath it we have the logline, and here I give you an example of a logline structure, but of course you can, choose your own and create your own. This is just something to help. And the logline example is: protagonist must goal to overcome obstacle/conflict, or else stakes/consequence. And then on the right we have stats, and if you know me, you know I like to track all of my stats. So first we have the total scenes that we think this novel will have, then the total word count, then the total time goal, and here I would write, for example, I'm starting this in June of 2025, and maybe I want to try and complete the novel at the end of 2026, something like that. And then we have the word count for each draft. So personally, I'm an underwriter, so draft 0 has slightly less words, draft 1 has more words, draft 2 even more, etc, etc. And of course here I have a write with me, because I know some of you guys really love this, and I'm hoping to make more videos like this where I share my writing sessions and we can write together. So if you want, you can try and write with me. I would be very happy to have you. And next to it, I have a Pomodoro kitten. This is also very motivational, and I really like the 25-minute timer because writing for half an hour is not overwhelming. Like, you can do it half an hour before you go to bed or wake up half an hour earlier to write. So then I'm going to show you the first column where we have 2 pages, the agents and the query package. And I'm going to open, oh my god, my computer is dying. So let me open the agents database. Okay, here I only have 3 examples, but the one that I have for my personal use already has, I think, almost 100 agents. And if you're familiar with the query process, you know that you need to have a lot of agents on your query list if you're going to give yourself a good chance at finding your agent. This is, of course, if you're thinking of traditionally publishing. But yes, let me explain this list to you. I haven't started querying yet, but I just feel like this list has already been so helpful because it just keeps everything in one place and organized. So we're starting here with priority, and we have from 1 to 3. This is how well you think an agent fits your project. So if you think an agent is your dream agent, then they would have priority 1. And if you think another agent could be a good fit but you're not so sure, then they'll have priority 3. Then next to it, you also need to know if the agent is open to queries or closed. So if they're closed, you don't want to query them yet because, you know, they won't respond either way. And then of course we have the agent's name and the agency. And you can see that those 4 properties are fixed, and then the rest of the properties, you can scroll through them. So next we have the query round, because of course if you have 100 agents to query, you don't want to query them all at the same time. I've seen it recommended that you query like 6 to 10 agents at a time, and I think 10 is already a lot. 6 is more manageable, but of course you can decide for yourself. And then we have queried on, so this is the date when you sent the query. Responded on, the date when they responded. Then we have this question response, because you can find this information on Query Tracker and sometimes also on the agent's website. So here I have response always in 4 to 6 weeks, in 2 to 4 weeks, or if they go 30 days without responding, then that's a pass. That means they will not respond. And then we have the link to the agent's website. Then we have the sub method, because different agents have different ways that they prefer to receive their queries. One of them, query manager, email, and form. These are the main ones that I have found agents prefer. Then we have why this agent. This is basically the reason why you think they're a good fit for you. Authors they represent, and authors the agency, agency represents. Okay, then we have that particular agent's submission guidelines, so you can see why it's so helpful to have only these properties scroll, so you can still see which agent you're talking about. And then the submission guidelines, for example, some prefer the query letter and the first 20 pages, others the query letter plus first 10 pages, and then here I have even more details pasted in the body of your email. Include the word query and the title of your project in the subject line. So some of them, you can tell, have really detailed requirements and guidelines. Then another one, query letter plus bio plus first 10 pages. Then we have the average request rate. You can also find this on Query Tracker, I believe on the premium version, but don't quote me on that. I haven't been on there in a while. And then finally we have the notes, where you can write any additional information that you have about this agent and which you think will help track your query. Okay, so that's the agents database. I really hope you like it and that you find it helpful. So let's go back to the main WIP page. And then the other page you have is the query package, but this page is empty. Basically what you could include in it is, for example, your author bio, the book synopsis, page samples, you know, things that you think will be needed for querying each agent. Yeah. Okay, so now let's scroll down. And we have the writing tracker, which is a star feature of this template. And this is a toggle, you can open it or close it. But what this is for basically is for tracking your writing progress. And this is really useful because it just tells you so much about your writing rhythm, your process. In the end, you'll have exactly how long it took you to write your novel, which I think is fantastic. I'll show you how to use it. First, you create a new page, of course, and the way I title the pages is I just write which day of writing this is. So, for example, let's imagine this is day 1 of writing this novel, and let's imagine that on day 1 I have 2 different writing sessions. I will still call this day 1, and then I just know that on day 1 I had 2 different writing sessions. And let's imagine that on the first writing session I wrote for 25 minutes, and on the second writing session I wrote for 50 minutes. So I know that in total I wrote for 75 minutes. And let's imagine that on the first writing session I wrote with 500 words, and on the second one 754 words. So after that you have a formula that tells you how many words per hour that is. That's just there for curiosity. And then of course we need to say which day this is. So let's imagine that I wrote this many words on the 18th of June, which is today. And the stage is draft 1. The act should probably be act 1. And then the feeling. Did I struggle? Did I love it? Was it okay? I think I loved it. But then in the second one you can clearly see I wrote much less, so maybe it was okay. Or maybe not, maybe I loved it, but let's just have different choices. Okay, and here this is important because here where it says project, this is what's going to keep this progress on this page in particular. If I said that this was short story, you see it would disappear because it would go to the database on the page of the short story. Because what's happening here is that all your writing progress is in the same database, but on this page it's filtered to show only WIP1, and on the short story page it's filtered to show only short story. And the way you do this is you just go here, you go to the filters and you choose WIP1, you see? And then finally we have the beat sheet. So I didn't used to have this, but recently I've just found that sometimes I don't want to immediately start a project on Scrivener. Sometimes I just want to have it in my mind and somewhere less official. So that's why I added the beat sheet. And this beat sheet is basically a mix of the Save the Cat beat sheet and the 7 plot point structure. So you can see Most of the beats are from Save the Cat, but then it has the first pinch point, which I think is very useful, the second pinch point, and yeah, that's basically the difference. But yeah, here you can just write what happens in each beat and slowly brainstorm the story before you move on to Scrivener or to your Word document. And for each project that I have, I start adding things here at the bottom. A lot of times I have toggles with research, etc. But you know, since this is just the general template for all stories, this is, you know, what I think is useful to start with. Okay, so that's the page for WIP1. So for novel projects, if we go back to the writing corner, then we will go to the short story 1 page, and you can see that this page is basically the same as the novel page, but here in the beat sheet, instead of having a full-on Save the Cat beat sheet, we just have the 7 plot point beats, because at least for the stories that I have in mind, I just find that this one is more useful. And again, you can see that here in the writing tracker, the filter is project short story 1. This is very important when you create a new page to change this. And if you want to add a new project, you can just, for example, have in the project, you create a new page, blah, blah, blah. Let's see. Here, let's say that for this one you want WIP2, okay, and then here, yeah, you just select WIP2. So yes, that's the page for the short story, basically the same as the novel. Let's go back to the writing corner once again. Okay, and you can see that now that we have added how much we have written today and therefore this week, we also have a new update here where it says this week, and it says time and words written. So we can see that this week we wrote for 75 minutes and we wrote a total of 1,254 words. If I had added any words on the short story, okay, so let's do that really quickly. Here in the writing tracker, new page, let's say this is day 1 again, and let's say that we wrote for another 25 minutes. No words because we were just brainstorming, and that was, let's say that was yesterday. Then this is brainstorming, maybe no acting specific, and we loved it. Okay, and it's short story. Now let's go back, and you can see that this has updated to show that this week you have written for 100 minutes and you wrote this many words, you worked on these 2 projects, and yeah, I just think that's neat. Okay, and then we just have here the quote of my heart, which is, I create what is true to my heart. This is, I would say, my personal quote. It's just a good reminder, you know, that I always want to be authentic and do the things that I love and not just, you know, follow the real world. But I'm going on a tangent here. Okay, I also want to show you just little details. For example, here under the box that says start here, we have a cute image, and then underneath that we have my author statement, where you can write, you know, your vision for your author career or for your author identity, and also my author godparents, where you can write down the authors that inspire you to write, or the authors that you can see your stories next to, like you can see your stories next to their books. And then we move on to the next section of this template. Here on the right we have the future projects. If you want to add a project to this database, you can. You just click new page and you have a template ready. Here you can see that it says not currently writing, but you also have all, and all will basically show you all of the projects that you have, whether you're writing them or not. So for example, you have here short story 1 in progress, WIP 1 in progress, but I just like to keep this on the future projects page. Okay, then here, if you had if you had chosen your goals for August and September as well, then you know you would have more goals here and you would see your progress slowly move forward. But yeah, right now you just have to, because I only chose the goals for July. Okay, and then the last section of this database is the choosing my next project table. I already explained this table in a previous video, but basically you have here a few questions that will hopefully help you choose the next project that you want to work on. What you do is you see, for example, WIP2, you ask yourself the question, how would I feel if this was the only book I ever published, and you rate the answer from 1 to 10. Maybe I would feel like an 8, you know. And then here you will see the sum for each project, and of course the one that has the highest score should theoretically be the one that you choose to write next, but a lot of times I don't choose the project with the highest score. But still, asking myself these questions helps me think about each project and, you know, just have a clearer idea of how I feel about each story. And in the end, I just have the database that shows everything I wrote this year, because why not? I just think it's something extra that's nice to have. Imagine arriving at the end of the year and seeing exactly how much time you spent writing on different projects and exactly how many words you wrote. I think it's cool, a cool feature. So yeah, that's it. That's the template. I really hope you like it. I hope it's useful for you, and if you do like it and if you think someone else would like it, then feel free to share it with your writer friends. And of course, this template is available on my Ko-fi page. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you have any question. I will try to reply as soon as possible. Okay, I'll see you in my next video. Bye!